powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, is back today. Adam Caplan would take a look at why the Jalen Hurts extension now, how it helps this team, and more. Jalen Hurts signs that monster deal yesterday, but now we have more information. Let's take a look. Adam Caplan from Inside the Birds podcast and InsideTheBirds.com joins us now for another edition of Football at 4 here on the Sports Bash. And Adam, obviously the big news yesterday, Hurts gets a huge deal. We'll take a look a little closer at that deal, but why now? Why on a random Monday do the Eagles reach out to Jalen Hurts and get this deal done?
Yeah, it wasn't like, just so you know, it wasn't like they decided all of a sudden one day, to wrap this thing up. But yeah, look, this is a major priority for the club. Howie Roseman, the general manager, made it clear, and he was pretty, I would say, emotional about it almost when speaking at the ownership meetings to the media there. And anyone who talked to him knew that they wanted this done sooner rather than later, but they wanted Hurts' timeline. And Hurts and his agent, Nicole Lynn, they wanted this done. And the worst thing that could happen, and I've dealt with this for years, dealing with players with extensions when you get to training camp, is for him not to have a deal, to have to go to training camp with this and being asked incessantly about it, and does it bother you and all this stuff. Players hate that, particularly quarterbacks. And there becomes a time where they shut the fact they could shut down the negotiations by the time the season started. So the good thing is they've completely avoided this. They got it done actually before the draft, which is great. Now the question is, you mentioned why do this now if you're the Eagles? Because he did have a year left. This is going back to Joe Banner, the former Eagles president. And Joe had told us on Inside the Birds, the times we've had him on, once they identify players who are their core, particularly a quarterback, they want to do the deals early because they know, yes, they're going to take on some risk if the player gets hurt or he's not who they thought these players should be or would be down the line. They're willing to take the risk on and take a good bet. And as you know, Mike, more often than not, when they sign these guys early, they're right. And you have to give Howie Roseman credit and Jeffrey Lurie, because Jeffrey Lurie signs the checks, and Howie Roseman sticking with Hurts. Last year, remember, we reported it, and so did several other outlets, that they were doing a lot of work on Deshaun Watson. Russell Wilson wasn't coming here because he didn't want to come here, but the Eagles definitely had interest in him, but that was shut down quickly. He put a short list down and was basically Denver, and so that ended that. And look, the staff that came in, they didn't know Jalen Hurts. I mean, they did some work on him, but they didn't really know him, and they had to get to know him in 2021. And they got to the playoffs, Mike, and I think that really showed them something. Though he didn't have a great year, he had phenomenal offseason last year. That's really where it started. And they got to a Super Bowl, as Jeffrey Lurie said, Mike, before. He actually said it during the media day at the Super Bowl that he didn't need to prove anything else. And that was prophetic, because they would wind up pushing this forward. In fact, they had talks really going back to late last season, just informal talks, just about, hey, let's talk when we get a chance to ramp this up. And to the Eagles' credit, they stepped up. Now, you talked about how's the deal help them in the future. I have not got the breakdown yet. I'm looking. I want to get the full breakdown, because we're gonna break this down for our listeners on our Inside the Birds podcast of what it means and how it's structured. But my understanding on the structure, it's your typical Eagles extensions that they've done over the last 3 to 4 years, with lower cap numbers because of option bonuses, which once the bonuses get exercised and the cap numbers go up, but initially they're low, and that helps you sign players. And by the way, Mike, if you really looked at it, they've almost extended everyone or re-signed everyone. Moshe and I were going through this. I don't know if there's anyone really left right now. Now, next year, if a couple guys do really well, like Hassan Reddick and others, then they could address it after the season or late this season. But right now, there's not much else to do.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Is everybody's, how's this deal help the team? We kept hearing yesterday, it's a win-win. You hear this huge number, and you're like, well, how are they pushing these cap numbers down the road? Well, it seems that they've kind of pushed them down to the way end of this deal, and it kind of gives this team the ability, Adam, to have flexibility.
Yeah, and this is, again, like, for instance, it's funny you mentioned that, because I happened to be looking at A.J. Brown's deal this morning. I was kind of laughing. It was sort of was sort of a puffed up deal because this is unbelievable. A.J. Brown's last year of his deal has a major cap number of $41.6 million. Obviously, the Eagles cannot bring him back on that. His base salary is a quarterback salary of over $30 million. What it does is it overinflates the average per year, and that's agents love that, and that's great. But A.J. Brown will never see that $30 million in 2026. In fact, who knows if he'll be with the team past 2024? He's got to get past these next two seasons and not be hurt. But he's obviously had a great year. So yeah, a lot of these deals get backloaded. But again, we're going to break that down on our Thursday show. But Mike, one other thing here, which is extremely important for fans to understand, and this is really important to the Eagles as they extend these players. Their offense, Mike, listen to this. Hurts is signed through 2028. Lane Johnson through 2026. Jordan Mailata signed through 2025. Landon Dickerson through 2024. A.J. Brown, again, yeah, he's signed through 2026, but it's really based on structure through 2025. Devontae Smith, 2024 plus a fifth-year option. Dallas Goedert through 2025. Mike, the core of this offense is essentially going to be with them through 2025, and obviously if Dickerson stays healthy, they'll extend that deal before even 24 hits after this season. Would it surprise you if they extended him? I wouldn't be surprised at all. This offense, I feel bad for Giants fans and Cowboys fans and Commando fans. Good luck trying to stop this offense. I know the Cowboys have had a good offseason, but this offense is going to be potent, and it starts with the quarterback.
Adam Caplan, Football at 4 from Inside the Birds podcast. And, he gets this deal, and some of the things you chronicle, he worked hard. He had a good season 2 years ago. They saw enough. He gets into the Super Bowl. But I would imagine the way he's viewed by management and the coaches and the teammates plays another huge part as to why Hurts got this monster deal.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because we don't talk about that enough. We always look at the spectacular season he had and the club had and all the talent around him. That Howie Roseman. It's not just Hurts. It's everything they did around. In fact, Scott Fitterer, the Panthers GM, brought that up today. He said, "Look what the Eagles have done for Jalen Hurts, building around him." And he might have said Josh Allen. I forget the other quarterback you mentioned, but it doesn't happen with just one player. The Eagles really addressed their offensive line, obviously, over the years, and A.J. Brown, what a trade that was. He was incredible. Now, getting back to Hurts and how he's viewed. Hurts, to his credit, we mentioned this with all this stuff out there about Watson. He just put all of that stuff aside, and he never at least showed it outwardly, Mike. He never really showed it outwardly in practice. I don't know that he needed any motivation, and maybe he used that as motivation. I can't answer that. I don't know the guy. But he handled himself with such class, and the coaches adore him. Again, they didn't really know him when they got there, because as far as they knew, right when they got the job, Carson Wentz could have been their quarterback. They didn't know until a couple weeks later that they couldn't get Wentz to change his mind, and that all changed. So, yeah, okay, they found out Hurts was going to be the guy, and he just handled himself so well as a professional. They gave him probably too much volume early on, and they backed off. They became more of a running team initially. But once they saw how much he adapted and how well he was able to process everything they gave him last spring, Mike, they gave him a lot of volume. Obviously they became a passing team more than a run team, though when they ran it, Mike, they sure ran it well, and plus he's a big part of it. And the other part of this is, and it's really important, he connected so well with his teammates, so humble. And the thing is, no entitlement, took responsibility when he didn't play. It's on me. Not every quarterback in this town has done, other than Jaws, who always took responsibility. Not every quarterback did that. But this kid did, Mike, and that's so important in today's NFL with all that's out there and all the information and social media and the criticism. He's handled like a champ, and that's when you're gonna look. We could all debate what the contract's really worth, but when you're gonna sign a guy with $110 million fully guaranteed at signing, you're not doing this if you're Jeffrey Lurie unless you trust the player. And they have such a high trust in him. And by the way, he will get better. He's not a perfect quarterback. He made the big jump, but there's still room for improvement.
Adam, I guess it rolls right into that this team now knows that they'll have their quarterback for at least 6 more years. And you wonder what that means for this offense. Do we see changes with this offense, or is this the guy and this is the way they're going to run things? Shane Steichen is not the play caller anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because Brian Johnson now is the play caller. Brian Johnson and Hurts go back to when he was very, very young. He's known the family for years. So, yeah, that'll be interesting because Brian Johnson not only will be the OC, he was his quarterback's coach. He's now going to call the plays, which he did in college at University of Florida. So this is you're right. Shane Steichen was the play caller. He wasn't a primary game plan guy, but as I'm told, but he was obviously the play caller. And yeah, this is going to be a different voice in his ear. This is a little different. Now the question would be, we can't quite answer this quite yet. We're gonna when we go to OTAs and we talk to people, we'll find out more. But I do wonder if he'll run as much because I know talking to the Bills, though they certainly design a lot for him. Over time, they want Josh Allen to run less because you worry about shoulder injuries. Hurts has got hurt the last 2 seasons, as you know, Mike. He had that shoulder injury, which was problematic. To his credit, he played through it in the playoffs like a champ. As you get older with guys who are going to run, you hope that they run less. Donovan, by the way, ran less overtime, and we know he had injuries. And that's just the part of it you like, and that you see later on that they accept that. They know they can't run as much, and they become more well-rounded. And then the other thing is, another thing we don't talk about Hurts enough is how well-built he is. I know he's only 6'1", but he's so strong physically. You remember he was a power lifter when he was younger. He's built his body up really, really, really well. I know some people thought maybe he could fill out a little better when the Eagles drafted him back in 2020. But Mike, he's really filled out. I'm really interested to see. Not that the offense is going to change under Brian Johnson, but every play caller brings in his own tweaks. I'm really interested to see that.
Well, we know this, that Jalen has the deal, and I would imagine we're going to be talking about a new deal for him in about 5 years.
Could be before that, because, again, I got to look at the structure and how the guarantees are structured, because like if the fully guaranteed money's out after year 3, and let's say he wins an MVP in year 4, Mike, you're absolutely right. They could go to him early. In fact, if I'm Nicole Lynn, I probably want to go to them earlier. Now, the other thing is, one thing before we get out of here, Mike. I know, look, he got a nice deal, but Burrow and Herbert have agents, particularly Herbert. That's athletes first. They've done so many quarterback deals, including Aaron Rodgers. They may not want to do a 5-year deal. Now, I get that it's a little different because Hurts did not have a 5th-year option. Those quarterbacks do. But they may not want to do – the agents now don't like doing 5- and 6-year deals. They want to do 3 or 4. I'm very curious to see if these deals get done, which probably will happen, how long those deals are.
Adam Caplan, the new Inside the Birds podcast on Thursday. He'll be back on Friday. We'll have more information there. And then, of course, we'll be inside a week to the NFL draft. Adam, appreciate it, man.
Oh, Mike, one more thing. We drop our final before the draft, Intel with Greg Cosell tomorrow. On wide receivers, you're going to love this one. Plus, there are 5 or 6 other players that we discussed, which we did not have time for on other shows, and that drops at 6 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Very cool. We'll be checking that out as well. And, of course, we'll have Jeff back tomorrow here for Football at 4. Adam Caplan, my man, take care.
Thank you.
Adam Caplan, everybody, here on the Sports Bash. He's back on Friday. Jeff's here tomorrow. And Andrew DeCecco, we will talk a lot of draft with Andrew. I know he's got a lot of thoughts